For the latest top tips, reviews and advice, please subscribe below.
Hello and welcome to Attwoolls Outdoors with me, Mike. Today I'm doing a bit of a pitching video for you on how you pitch the Vango Tiree. So the Tiree is a sort of available in two sizes, either a 350 or a 500. With me, what I'm going to do is kind of walk you through the process of how you're going to pitch, and also later on in the video pack away the Tiree tent. Admittedly, it's the first time me doing this, so you have to bear with me, but it should be fairly simple enough to do. So the first thing we want to do is basically spread it out, find where we want to have it on the pitch. So we can just sort of ravel it, nice and neatly. For the video I'm going to use my own pegs, but it's almost worth just bearing in mind. Now, if we unravel it up completely, so we want to find where the front door is located. The joys of the Tiree in many ways is actually the inner tent's already sort of pre-attached. So all I'm going to do is peg the main kind of corners. So spread it out nice and neatly. And go from there. So we start with the back, we'll work our way forward. So we'll peg the back two corners. When you peg in, you want to make sure you kind of peg us at about a 45-degree angle. Just means that any tension is going to keep it nice and taut. And it's not going to kind of just suddenly spring out of nowhere. There's little kind of D parts, rings you can go through to get it nice and sharp. So now we're in the back, we've kind of got a solid base. The next point of call is where the eyelet is located here. This will be the main kind of connection point. So this really wants to be near enough kind of dead in line with the main point. We're probably going to peg this approximately for the time being, just so we can get the shape of the tent and then we can tweak it as we kind of go. Again, we want to do the opposite side to that point. Pulling kind of slightly against it. Sorry, I actually hit you in the face there. On this point here, we're going to peg in through the metal ring, but also pegging out towards the front of the tent, just to get a little bit of tension. Like I said, it's only sort of a temporary thing for the time being, just until we can establish the proper shape of the tent. And finally, making sure the door is completely shut. We're going to peg the front part. Ideally, you want all the pegging points on the maximum amounts they can be. It just helps to adjust it later on. So we've also got a separate kind of review video talking about the product, so you can always check that out as well. So once we kind of peg the tent out, we'll get the poles out. Now, the joys of the poles, they're actually colour coordinated, so you should be able to find what pole should go where. So what you'll have, he says, is a solid black pole, a grey pole, and then also a blue pole. Now, at the bottom of each sleeve is located a little coloured tab. So, for example, there is a little grey tab. So that would signal it's the grey pole. Whereas this one here at the back is blue. So again, we'll get the blue pole there. And then last but not least, the black pole will be the front, so it'll be almost like no colour to it at all. So what I recommend doing is spread the pole out fully. Start with the central pole, that way the weight is evenly distributed between the front and the back. So again, you're not putting too much tension on the front or too much tension on the back. So you're going to feed that through, just making sure it's not going to snag any points. If need be, just kind of pull it back on itself. Makes life a little bit easier if you've got a second pair of hands, but no hardship if you haven't. So what we'll do now is, we've put just enough on that side so we can get the ring and pin. We're just going to feed all the poles through first. This way, what it's going to allow us to do is have all the poles in situ before we start bending it. The reason we do it that way is purely because if the material's already started to be sort of shaped, it's going to make feeding a straight pole much harder all the way through. So by doing it this way, it just makes life a little bit easier. By last but not least, the black pole. The joys of fiberglass poles, obviously they're quite light, they're fairly inexpensive to replace, and you can pretty much get them anywhere, just getting the right diameter. So, once we've fed all the poles in, we'll basically put the bottom of the pole into the pin. So we call this the ringing pin. So just locate that first. So just going to stick that in there. This is where a second pair of hands makes handy. So by putting it in at the bottom, I'm now going to basically leave that and push it up. Now the trick with this really is to bear the weight of the fabric and material. So we're pushing with the right hand. I'm just going to pull the fabric back on itself and just slowly pushing that up. That way it stops any fabric getting caught and you're fully in control at every stage. You can dig the pole into the ground there just to help it with a little bit. Then almost you kind of edge it in a little bit, and if need be you can still give it a little bit of a pull, enough wiggle room that the ringing pin goes in. Always finds a bit of tension there as well. I'm going to leave putting the clips on for the time being. At this point what I'm going to do is do the back pole. Again, you almost want just to insert in the ringing pin. Make sure you've got an extendable part on this side here. If hindsight, you probably go from that side to this side, just because there's a little bit more play in the one over there. But not to worry, as long as it's on its furthest point out, then we should be pretty much good to go. And last but by no means least, the very front pole. So it's going into the same ringing pin that the middle one has got into. Well, not the same ringing pin, but the same point is located there. Perfect. And then the same thing, we'll slide it across. We've dug it in the ground already, kind of, so that's going to enable us to just have, if you always want to pull it a bit closer to you, sometimes makes life a little bit easier. Brilliant. So now we're sort of all fully attached. We'll just put the last few clips on it. Doesn't matter in what particular order you kind of do this. Perfect. So the shape is now taking kind of shape. Obviously, we've got the height itself. So what we're going to do is actually tweak it and make sure all the kind of pegging points are kind of where they need to be. So there's normally a little strap that runs beneath the two, sort of from one point to the other. So we can just unpeg that a little bit to see where it naturally wants to lie, and then repeg it. And we'll kind of do the same working way back. So we'll kind of repeg that in a second, and then bring that guy right back again. And you see how kind of it's getting nice and taut at the front, which is kind of the ideal scenario we're looking for. Again, we'll just make sure that's to the one side, then the other. Brilliant. So now we've got the main body up. It's just a case of finally securing the guide points. I always tend to start with kind of the front points and work my way back. You almost want to try and do sort of brace it back and then front and then side ones if you can. The reason I say that is mainly because it helps to keep the roof really nice and taut. But it's quite a small little, it's quite cute, this little tent actually. Ideally you want, again, 45-degree angle. In a perfect world you want to make sure the guide is as far as possible, mainly for the purpose of, it means you can, as it adjusts, basically as the sort of the guide will always slacken off. Got that one the wrong way around. I'm going to come off the side. As it kind of got slack off, you've still got a bit of point to kind of tension it as you go. Nothing worse than having to try and re-peg it all. And then last but not least. So the principles in terms of pitching is going to be exactly the same it is for the 500 as it is the 350. And by all means check out a little review video we've gone a bit more in depth in terms of the features and specifications of that. But in hindsight, let's now move over to packing it away. So now we're going to pack this bad boy away. We're going to basically do sort of the same thing in reverse. So we'll leave the main 4 points of the tent pegged away, pegged up, and then we'll just take away the guy rope points. And as we go around, what I might do is just unclip any poles just to keep it nice and tidy. That way when we come to actually take it down properly, we're good to go. It's a good habit as well to, when you come round to it, any sort of webbing straps, just take those out fully. So just kind of unstretch them, whatever you want to call it really. The reason I say that is because when you come to pitch it next time, then you're sort of peace of mind, you haven't got to worry about adjusting it or tweaking it as you go. So just being kind to yourself really for next time around. Same with kind of all the pegging points, the poles. Just makes life a hell of a lot easier as we go. So because we tension it off as well, it makes it all a little bit saggier. So now what we'll do is we're going to basically take the poles out. Now I'd recommend doing it from the back towards the front. The reason I say that is because any internal air inside the tent is then going to be kind of forced forward as the material goes down. So again, it just means that you're not having a big balloon amount of air come at the end of it. Now you can either pull it out quite nice and neatly, or if you give it a little bit of flex, so keep the pole flexed, the pole will come out quite nice and easily. If there's two pairs of hands, then one can feed, one can just make sure it's guiding it. You don't want to pull because essentially the poles will just come out from one another. So hence why I said about just kind of flexing it. So once it's flexed, then it can't physically pull apart. Yeah, Bob's your uncle, funny's your aunt. That just leaves the last pole. But so in terms of simplicity of packing it away, there's also some things you can do to help you rather than hinder you. Hence, like I said, in the order you take the poles down. It's also just taking the extra strain out of it. Poles generally tend to feed in better when it's all kind of straight rather than arced. Same when obviously you take them out. I mean, you could in theory just drop all the poles out of the ring and pin so it falls flat and then take the poles out as well, but it's entirely up to yourself. I mean, I just got that way because I'm just trying to manage the airflow as well. So if the wind's obviously coming from a certain direction, because we've taken the main 4 corners, the tent's not really going anywhere. And what we'll do is basically then take the poles to the very back of the model. We have got one tie here as well, so that will help us keep it all nice and neat. And we'll basically also utilise the poles as kind of a folding guide, so how wide we want it to fold it. Because the ground sheet of the inner is obviously down on the floor essentially, depending if it's wet or muddy, for example, you want to be careful. So sometimes you can just sort of fold in half. Because I've just pitched this, as we've just seen, I know it's clean and dry. So what I'm going to kind of do is fold in towards the middle, because then I'm sort of lining myself in with that central door. And then from there I can sort of roll it from one side to the other. So we'll flip that over. Like I said, for a width wise, if you get the poles, give yourself a bit of a, not the grasp, give yourself a bit of an idea. Pretty much it just goes into quarters, in my experience. Guy ropes, you can obviously, depends how particular you want to be. You can obviously make sure they're really quite nice and neatly tied. Just make it easier when you come to pitch it next time away. But for the purpose of just quickness, I'm just going to keep it all kind of neat and tidy. And finally we'll have that last roll over. Now just making sure we're all nice and straight. Now we'll get the little extra bit of cord, we'll call it a cord, pop that just underneath half it. That way when we come to roll it, it's going to be the right position where we can just literally worry about tying it. And by using the poles as a point to roll around, gives us something solid, we can just get a nice good firm grip on it. We kind of go from there then. Try and keep your weight sort of fairly kind of central over it. Just tends to make life a lot easier. There we go, tie's ready in place. Just keep it at, stop it moving around, and then we can just quite easily flip the bag over the top, and jobs are good. Nice, easy, compact, simple to put up, simple to pack away, and plenty of room in the bag as well. So all in all, that's how you pitch and pack the Vango Tiree. Feel free to check the link below this video, or check out a review video on the product as well if you want to learn more information about the product itself. So thank you for watching. Hopefully we'll see you again soon in our next sort of pitching, packing tutorial and review videos.